Welcome to our special Oscars episode of Behind the Screen. I'm Carolyn Giardina, and I'm here with my colleague, Executive Awards Editor Scott Feinberg, to give a final look at this year's Oscar nominations. Scott, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's a nice tradition.
So let's start with the Best Animated Film category. The nominees this year are Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, The Sea Beast, and Turning Red. And I think you and I both agree that this is probably one of the easier ones to predict this time out.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt that in the title of Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is the name Guillermo del Toro, who is one of the most popular people in the business. And so, yes, the movie in itself is probably worthy, but it certainly will get a boost from its association with him, as it has all season. You know, it's won essentially every important precursor award. And it's this whole story, which you can tell better than I can, but basically just a years-long, painstaking effort to offer a darker, more adult, maybe friendly take on the 1940 Disney classic. And I think, you know, literally Netflix has a billboard up at the moment on, I believe it's Sunset Boulevard, which has expressed their thesis, which is basically that animation is cinema. Animation is not just a genre for kids, and that is sort of all the, you know, what their argument is for Pinocchio here.
Right. No, that's a message that Guillermo's really been talking about all season, and I mean, it's a beautiful retelling of the novel. And as you said, I mean, it really won pretty much all of the precursors. It won the BAFTA. It won the Top Annie Award, Visual Effects Society, film editing, pretty much everything, as you said.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to costume design. The nominees are Babylon, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. And this one I'm actually going to combine with Best Production Design because Catherine Martin's work on Elvis is nominated for both of those. And she previously won both of those categories for Moulin Rouge and again for The Great Gatsby. Do you think she can do it again?
I think it's certainly possible, and I've looked at that very hard. I do also know, as I know you know, that it's actually not the kind of regular way of things that those two usually go together. They're quite often broken up. And so while she has that history, I think there is a very real chance that they could be broken up. And so to me, costume design is in all likelihood between her and between Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which was designed by Ruth E. Carter, who won for the first Black Panther in this category. So I think that, you know, the argument there I've heard is that Elvis costumes are essentially modeled off of photographs and just recreating stuff that you have a reference point for, whereas Wakanda Forever had to be created essentially out of thin air. And so, you know, that it's just so prominent in all the promotional materials you see for everything, anything for Angela Bassett. It's got these very elaborate headpieces and all kinds of stuff. So I personally think it could go and may well go to Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And I think that's despite the fact that Black Panther Wakanda Forever lost at the Costume Designers Guild Awards in the sci-fi fantasy film category to Everything Everywhere All at Once, despite the fact that Elvis is also up for Best Picture, whereas Wakanda is not. I just think that there's something about when you think of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, the costumes do seem to be, you know, in the forefront.
Right. And then if you look at the production design category, in addition to Elvis, we have All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, Babylon, and The Fabelmans. And the one that we should flag in here, in addition to Elvis, is Babylon, which won the BAFTA, and it also won the category for period production design at the Art Directors Guild Awards. And over the past 5 years, the winner of that category went on to win the Oscar 3 times.
Yeah, absolutely. And Babylon also won the Critics' Choice Award. So there is a lot to be said for Babylon, except that I think if we look at the production design nominees, as you know, are decided by that specific branch of the Academy. But now it goes to the full Academy for the win. And we know that outside of the music branch and the production designers branch, there was really very little support for Babylon, which makes me wonder if enough voters have even seen it to be voting for it in these categories. And whereas we have opposite Babylon here, Elvis with Catherine Martin, a film that is nominated for Best Picture. She has won twice before for, the kind of flashy, colorful movies that she's made with her husband, Baz Luhrmann. So I am picking her in this category. But another wild card there is All Quiet on the Western Front. And if it wins for production design, then that may be an early indicator that we're seeing a sweep for that film, which definitely kind of had that result at BAFTAs, not winning this award, but sort of being a latecomer that just dominated at the BAFTAs, and we might see that here as well.
Well, that takes us to makeup and hairstyling, where All Quiet on the Western Front is nominated alongside Batman, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Elvis, and The Whale.
It's a tough one because if you look at recent years, it's this award often kind of correlates with a lead acting, front runner because who has really transformed him or herself. So you've got the Iron Lady winning both Best Actress and makeup and hairstyling. You've got The Eyes of Tammy Faye just last year with Jessica Chastain winning Best Actress and then the makeup and hairstyling. It doesn't always work out that way, but it seems to, Gary Oldman, Best Actor and makeup and hairstyling. So in this case, I think that we are likely to see the winner be either, the Whale or Elvis, because they have lead acting nominees who are physically transformed in very different ways, but in very major ways. And I think one of those is likelier to be recognized here. You've got, with The Whale, it's basically making Brendan Fraser unrecognizably obese, and that means they've really emphasized the sort of the way that they've gone about doing that is different than other movies have historically done with dealing with, creating obese characters with actors who are not obese. Elvis, I think, is a little bit less of a physical transformation, or at least that's less at the forefront of the conversation. So I kind of think that The Whale is likelier just because it's such a prominent part of that movie, the makeup and hairstyling transformation.
Okay, let's go to film editing. We have The Banshees, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Tar, and Top Gun Maverick. In this case, Michael Nielsen, who edited Banshees, actually won the Oscar in film editing 2 years ago for Sound of Metal. All others are first-time nominees. What do you think of this category?
I think that, again, the editing community is obviously very familiar with how to tell the difference between strong editing and not. I don't think the rest of the Academy necessarily is. And so what they often respond to is the most editing, which in this case could be seen as Top Gun Maverick, which has these crazy aerial action sequences that are very thrillingly cut by Eddie Hamilton. But then you also have Everything Everywhere All at Once, which has a ton of, inserts, brief snippets. It also, to whatever extent people are able to follow the whole idea of these multiverses and everything, it's largely dependent on the effectiveness of the editing of Paul Rogers. So I think it's between those two, which both
are the two that the Eddies picked as well.
Yeah,
and then Everything Everywhere is the one that won the BAFTA. Yeah.
So I actually, both at BAFTA and Critics' Choice, Everything Everywhere beat Top Gun, and I just think it's likely to happen again here. I could see it being either of those, but my hunch is that, if the Academy is truly so on board, I guess the way I would put it is that, again, may be a very early bellwether about how the Best Picture award is going to go, because you've got these two top contenders, and my hunch is that it will be Everything Everywhere, but I would not be shocked if Top Gun Maverick won here. And in fact, I'm just pulling up because I'm trying to remember what happened. Not that it's totally relevant, but just out of curiosity, 36 years ago, we had the original Top Gun, which
the original
was,
Top Gun was nominated in film editing, and it lost to Platoon.
Yeah, so I think the fact that, Tar, Banshees, it's just not as showy. I guess Elvis is quite showy when you have, but I would not give a lot of credence to Banshees or Tar being contenders there.
Okay, so let's move to Best Sound. Here we do have All Quiet on the Western Front. We have Avatar: The Way of Water. We have The Batman, Elvis, and Top Gun Maverick. Now, this is a category that combines what was previously sound editing and sound mixing. This is only the third year since they recombined the categories, so we don't have a lot of history to look at. But what we do know is All Quiet won the BAFTA. We know that Top Gun won Cinema Audio Society, which is sound mixing. And then motion picture sound editors kind of spread their wealth. All Quiet won Best Sound Editing for a foreign language film. We had Elvis win for music editing and Top Gun win for effects and Foley. What are your feelings on this one?
Yeah, I think it is truly, in some ways, a toss-up between those three. I think that sound, to me, there are some years where that's been, especially when there were the two sound awards, where musicals were sort of expected to win, I think usually sound mixing. Now that you have one, it does feel like Top Gun Maverick is perhaps slightly out front here. And that does seem to be the pick of most of my fellow pundits as well. So I'm, cautiously picking that.
Well, we can also take a quick look at original score, which is All Quiet on the Western Front, Babylon, Banshees, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and The Fabelmans. John Williams, once again. What are your feelings here?
Whether it's coincidental or not, it is notable to me that the BAFTA award for score has corresponded with the Oscar winner for score in 8 of the last 10 years, including the last 3. And so the fact that All Quiet won there is notable. You have certainly had Babylon winning a few other things, but only once in the last 19 years has this Oscar category gone to a movie that was not also nominated for Best Picture. So I think that even if Babylon might be deserving, I don't see that being likely. I think the sleeper wild card here is John Williams for The Fabelmans. He's been nominated over 50 times. He's won a bunch, but he has kind of flirted the idea that he's nearing the end of his career. He's not retiring just yet, but how many more will he do? It's not, he's in his 90s. He's already the oldest, I believe, nominee at this point, and would be, of course, the oldest winner then. So I think there's a sentimental possibility that people vote for him, but I would put it on All Quiet, which also in all of their, online and television marketing has really emphasized that. I think it's 3-note kind of anchor of its score that has really, it's quite memorable. Now, Babylon's score is omnipresent. It's a loud score. It's sort of Justin Hurwitz, great talent. Those are two where I think you actually do really remember the score, and that probably matters. Right.
But I agree with you. I'd give the edge to Vogel Bertelmann. And let's also do original song. We have applause from Tell It Like a Woman, Hold My Hand, Top Gun Maverick, Lift Me Up, Black Panther, Natu Natu from RRR, and This Is a Life from Everything Everywhere.
Yeah, it's a really interesting, hard to call category here because, the two journalist groups, Critics' Choice and Golden Globes, both went for Natu Natu from RRR, which is a very catchy song and means a lot if you've seen how it's employed in the movie. But the problem is this movie was not nominated anywhere but in this category at the Oscars. And so you wonder how many people actually, of the whole organization have taken the time to watch the movie, see it in, see how that song fits in the context of the movie. It's certainly possible that it wins here, but more often the best original song tends to come from a Best Picture nominee, which would mean that Top Gun Maverick song by Lady Gaga, Hold My Hand, or Everything Everywhere All at Once's song by David Byrne and Son Lux and that crowd, that would be, would be between those two. And in fact, Lady Gaga herself has kind of learned that lesson the hard way when everybody thought she and Diane Warren were going to win for the documentary song Till It Happens to You. And then you realize, well, people didn't watch that in the same numbers that they watched in that case, the Bond song by Sam Smith, which beat it. So I think it's important to remember, people generally don't vote for things if they haven't seen the movie. Even if they listen to the songs, it's just, you have to generally feel an investment in the movie. So while most people are picking Not To, then maybe even the second most number of people are picking the Rihanna song from Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Lift Me Up. I kind of think that Top Gun Maverick with Lady Gaga, ironically, the one song of the 5 nominees that will not be performed on the Oscars telecast, I think that might end up winning.
And actually, it probably should be noted that that Take My Breath Away from the original Top Gun did win the Oscar in this category.
Yes. And, I don't know that this song is as memorable as that one, but it just shows that when people are watching a movie in large numbers, as they certainly have with Top Gun Maverick, the highest grossing domestic, release of the year, it can make a difference.
Well, best visual effects feels like a foregone conclusion. We have All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Batman, Black Panther, and Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it looks like a done deal. You've got the same, not the exact same, but you got Joe Leterrier and the Weta people who won 13 years ago for the original Avatar are back with another one. And even if you don't like the movie, basically everyone acknowledges that its most distinguishing characteristic is its kind of visual effects. So I think it would be a massive shocker if it does not win that award.
I quite agree. And then, it has all of these advancements, the underwater performance capture, the facial capture, and that one also won the BAFTA, and that one also really swept the Visual Effects Society Awards, winning everything, including the top category there.
Yeah.
And I quite agree with you. That would probably the biggest shock of the night if that doesn't win. Yeah. For Joe Leterrier, this would be his 5th Oscar.
Well, and also I'm actually looking up, has anyone won more than that?
Dennis Muren holds the record for 8 competitive, not including things like scientific and technical awards or honorary awards. But with a 5th, Joe Leterrier would be at 5, which would be a tie with Ken Ralston.
Yeah.
At the Bake Off this year, I remember one branch member commented that they were there to vote on which 4 teams would be at the Dolby Theater to clap when Avatar won.
That sounds right to me. I mean, it's pretty, I guess you can the rest of them can just let loose and drink and have fun because they don't have to worry about giving a speech.
Although we should say, Avatar aside, all 4 of the others are very worthy nominees and represent some really terrific work this year.
Sure.
And then the last one is Best Cinematography. We have All Quiet on the Western Front, James Friend, Bardo, Darius Khondji, Elvis, Mandy Walker, Empire of Light, Roger Deakins, and Tar, Florian Hofmeister. And as we're recording this is just days after Mandy Walker became the first woman to win the feature category for the American Society of Cinematographers.
Yeah, which is an amazing accomplishment, and that would be the same, right, at the Oscars. She would be the first female winner. But my hesitation in predicting her is that partly that I think All Quiet on the Western Front feels like more their cup of tea, and it did win the BAFTA and Society of Camera Operators top awards for cinematography, or for cinematography related work. I don't think the ASC has the greatest track record of predicting this award, but also maybe most importantly, if Mandy Walker's name was actually on the ballot and people were aware of the fact, outside of the cinematography community, that they would have a chance to help make history, I think she would have a a better shot. But unfortunately, the reality is just that they only list the film's names. So, it's not, it's just that is not an advantage that she'll have. So I think All Quiet, which was not even nominated for the ASC award, but I don't read into that a lot because it's sort of a clubby Hollywood centric group, right? I think that All Quiet has at least as good a shot as Elvis at winning there.
Well, I think it's between those two. I agree with you, but I'm still think Mandy could pull it off.
Well, that would be, yeah, be a cool
the
moment.
record the background right now is at 7 of the last 10 years. The ASC winner did go on to win the Oscar. And to your point about the name being on the ballot, you and I have been going to a lot of different events this season, but what I can say about the ones that I've been to, I've certainly noticed that, Baz Luhrmann has been very vocal about reminding people, about Mandy and, whenever he speaks. Have you been seeing that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I know they've really featured her in a lot of their prominent Q&As and film promotional videos and stuff as well. So, look, I'd be very happy for her. It would certainly be a worthy winner. When you look at the history of that category, there's a lot of war movies, sort of sweeping stuff there, maybe more so than musicals. But again, it's or musical biopics, whatever you want to call it. I think it's sort of a toss up, but be very happy if she ended up winning.
Well, those are the crafts categories, but bigger picture, this is also the year that we're going to see all of the crafts categories presented live, and we're told it will be done in the same way as all of the other categories. You and I just listened to the press conference a little while ago where they reviewed that. They didn't reveal too many details, but what are your thoughts on the show itself?
I mean, I'm looking forward to it. It's in the kind of higher profile categories. There's a lot of question marks this year, which will make it both nerve-wracking and exciting for people like me who try to prognosticate about these things. I mean, 3 of the 4 acting categories, all of them except supporting actor, where Ki Huy Kwan appears to be a slam dunk. I mean, the other 3 are up for grabs between at least 2 and in some cases 3 people who all have very legitimate chances of winning. And so there's that. Then you have Best Picture, which is, given the Academy's preferential ballot, really always makes it a wild card makes it a little scary to predict since the expansion of the category beyond 5 nominees. And so, yes, Everything Everywhere All at Once has been winning almost everywhere else, but except at the Producers Guild Awards, that was not on a preferential ballot. And it is not a movie that, to me, feels built for the preferential ballot. It's quite polarizing. There are people who absolutely love it, and there are people who have given their very best to try to watch it all the way through or understand it. And I can't tell you how many people say they gave up because they just felt lost. And yes, those are primarily older people, but there are a lot of older people in the Academy. And so I would still predict it for lack of greater confidence in predicting something else, but I would not be totally shocked if All Quiet on the Western Front or Top Gun Maverick were to pull this out. I think anything other than that would be a real shocker, but I don't think, that it's a done deal at all for Everything Everywhere All at Once. On the one hand, like last year's winner for Best Picture, Coda, it is a group of people who it's impossible not to be happy for and root for their success. That's what they have in common. But what they don't have in common is that Coda, may not have been everyone's favorite movie, but it was not a movie that anyone actively disliked. And unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Everything Everywhere. There are a lot of people who love it, but there are a lot of people who just either don't get it or actively dislike it. So it's all going to come down to this preferential ballot. And, when you think about which movies are most likely to be eliminated on the first round, basically the first round they then reallocate that movie's, ballots into whatever pile is number 2 on those ballots. So if you think that either Women Talking or Triangle of Sadness are the first 1 or 2 to be eliminated, then you do have to think what would be number 2 on most people who, on the ballots of people who went for those movies. And those are art house kinds of, movies. They're not massive crowd pleasers like Top Gun Maverick or whatever. So there is still my hunch is that those people will have Everything Everywhere quite high, and that will help get it across the 50% threshold before any other movie. But it's not a done deal.
That concludes our last Oscar podcast of the season then. Scott, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy Sunday night.